Well, hey everybody, I wanted to make a video just kind of showing how we change some of our routing and patching for our acoustic weekends. Typically when we have a full band, we run our tracks, clicks and guides and everything from this computer and the interface inside the drum cage, which is fantastic when we have a drummer. But if we have an acoustic weekend, there's no one in the drum cage to fire off any tracks. So a lot of times what we'll do is we will move the computer over to the keys or somewhere else on the stage so that another member of the team can fire off those clicks. And typically it's just a click and a pad that we have going underneath each song. But basically, what we want to do is change some of the digital routing in here. We don't want to change any of the physical patching, but we've actually purchased a Motu AVB Ultralite. It's an interface that will let us use audio over USB or over AVB, which is their audio over Ethernet protocol. So we can actually take the computer from here, move it to here, and connect the computer over Ethernet to the existing interface and all the physical plugs for our audio that are wired up. And then that way the only thing that needs to change is our digital wiring, digital routing, but the physical routing can stay the same, which means that we don't have to tear things apart, and that makes life a lot easier. So I'm going to do a quick overview of how that is set up physically on the stage, how to move things around, and then also how to change the routing inside of the computer. So let's take a look. All right, so first things first, this is the back end of the rack that we have in the drums. It's not very pretty, but it works, so bear with me here. But basically, if you look at the back of this interface, I know it's kind of hard to see here, but there are multiple ways to transmit the data. You've got USB and Ethernet right next to one another. So typically we'll plug in the computer over USB because it's sitting right on top of this case. But when we run it around, we'll use the Ethernet. So there's actually an Ethernet cable that is just hanging here that runs around the entire stage, and I'll show you where that goes. Because I don't want to tear everything apart because we're not doing an acoustic set this weekend, I'm just going to use a different Ethernet cable for the time being. But basically that Ethernet cable runs the whole length of the stage underneath here and then coils up underneath our keys computer. So there's plenty of extra. This is a Cat 7 cable. It didn't need to be Cat 7, but that's what we had lying around. So then we'll set the computer wherever it makes sense and plug it in over Ethernet. So let me show you kind of how that is set up in here. Right now I have this computer again connected over Ethernet to our Motu AVB Ultralite, which is right down there. Sorry, the lighting isn't the best for this, but let me show you how you access that and change those settings. So at the top of the screen, you'll see this little icon will turn from gray to black when the AVB is connected. And then you click on Ultralite AVB to access the settings. So I was in the routing last, so that's the first thing that it opens up. But basically, to understand the routing, it's pretty simple. Essentially, all of this stuff is coming to all of this stuff. So audio is coming from here, going out here. So essentially what we want to do is change our routing from the top so that it all lines up with our analog outputs. And I've labeled them. We used to have click on output 1, but it broke, so now it's 5. But I've labeled the analog outputs so it's easy. So you just line up the 4 channels coming from the computer, either over USB or over AVB, which is how we're connected right now, and you line them up to the corresponding analog outputs. So if I wanted to change the routing for the click, you can see these lines helping me to see that the click would be connected to the click when I select that box. So it's really just that simple to change things around, but we've made it actually even simpler. You can choose a preset that will switch all of the routing from USB to AVB. So if I click on this little icon right up here, it opens up all of my presets, and I can choose between tracks over USB and apply that preset, and nothing will change because it's already set up that way. Or I can choose audio over AVB, which is Ethernet, and when I apply that, you'll see all the settings change. So that's great. So that's an easy way to make sure that you are setting it up appropriately, and you can actually do it even one step easier without even having to open this. You can select a preset on the Motu itself. So bear with me here. If I get down and look at the Motu, this button right here, the very rightmost button, is your select button. So I click that in, and it gives me a couple different presets that I can choose from. You scroll all the way down till you get to presets, and then it lets you cycle through what all the presets are. The ones that we're going to be using are audio over AVB, tracks over AVB, or tracks over USB. So basically, it's that simple. If I click tracks over USB, it'll activate, and my settings will represent that. If I click tracks over AVB, it will activate, and the screen will change. And while you're looking at the screen, I'm just going to click USB one more time, so you can see it's doing all the work for you, right? So that's really all the more you need to do, and then you can hit this button here to exit. But that's basically it. You make sure that your Ethernet is connected, or that your USB is connected, which I just connected the USB for the time being, and then that will route it correctly. And I'm going to play these tracks so that you can see on the screen. Because I have the Ethernet connected, they are coming through the AVB stream, but because the USB is routed to the outputs, nothing's coming to these outputs. So if I change my preset, now the routing is such that the audio is coming through the analog outputs, which means it's going to the soundboard. So that's really as simple as it is. The most important thing is to make sure you put it back to how it was previously. So if you had it connected over USB, you want to make sure that you set that back for Sunday mornings. Otherwise, the next group of people that comes in will not be able to use the computer, and they'll be wondering why. But that's essentially it. That's as simple as it is. Make sure your Ethernet or USB are connected, and then hit your preset, and you're good to go.